Right now, Congressman Mike Arcuri is on the phone with reaction to the President's State of the Union. Congressman, I'm not going to start with any of the controversy, but I want to start with high-speed rail, because I know this is an issue that has been very close to your heart. It's been very important for Central and Upstate New York because it can change the way we do things here across New York, the way people get from one side to the other. Tomorrow the President will be in Tampa, Florida, where workers will be breaking ground on a new high-speed railroad that will be funded by the Recovery Act. Is this the platform? Is this the outline that we'll see applied here across New York?
Well, I think we'll see that we will be getting some funding. I think they'll be announcing it tomorrow. Certainly, we would have liked to have been able to get a little more than we did, but I think we've done pretty well, considering the fact that 6 months ago, New York didn't even have an application together. We weren't shovel-ready, and in a very short time, we were able to get, a proposal together, get everyone to agree on it, and to put our application together. And I think it's a really, really good first step, and I'm really pleased with it. And I was glad the President talked about it tonight.
Now, like Senator Gillibrand, who we're going to have come on in a bit, as a more conservative Democrat, a blue dog Democrat, some of the things the President mentioned, I'm sure hit a positive note with you, as they did with many Republicans, as a matter of fact, that he's prepared to freeze government spending for 3 years, but that won't happen for 1 year. That small businesses will get a tax credit and a hiring credit, that he will eliminate all capital gain taxes on small businesses, that there will be clean energy jobs.
Right. He also said that he urged the Senate to pass PAYGO, which is a blue dog initiative in the House, which we passed, and we've been trying to get the Senate to pass. So I was really pleased to hear him talk about PAYGO and some of those belt-tightening measures.
So in hearing all of those things, are you optimistic in the next year to come that perhaps, because I know at times, especially in the early debate of the health care bill, you had your questions about maybe some of the motives or some of the moves of this administration in terms of what would happen fiscally. Are you optimistic as to what might come in the next year?
Yeah, I think the President said many of the things that he needed to say tonight. I think first of all, he set the right tone by saying that, hey, we were all sent to Washington to come together and to effectuate change. So that was really important. And he criticized Democrats, Republicans, he even criticized the Supreme Court for a recent decision they had. He said that the Senate really needs to pass PAYGO. The Senate can't keep, focusing on a 60-vote supermajority, but rather they need to take action and stop the bickering back and forth. So, yeah, I was pleased with some of the things, that the President said. I didn't agree with everything that he said, but, I was very pleased to hear him talk about fiscal responsibility. I had sent him a letter last week asking him to put a freeze on spending, so I was really glad when he announced that tonight, because that's what I hear most from Americans. They're concerned with jobs. They're concerned with, putting the brakes on spending. And, and he said, hey, healthcare is still a priority, but, we need to focus on jobs and keep our focus on the economy.
Now, the President also set out sort of a list of directives for both parties, and here's what he said. To Democrats, I remind you, we still have the largest majority in decades. The people expect us to solve some problems, not run for the hills. And if the Republican leadership is going to insist 60 votes in the Senate are required to do any business at all in this town, then the politics, responsibility to govern, it's now yours as well. Just saying no to everything may be good in the short term, but it's not leadership. We're sent here to serve citizens, not our ambitions. Do you think the President took a hard line on both parties, or do you think maybe it was a little bit about looking like he was ready to stand up and have something to say about all of the bickering, all of the pettiness? He did repeat that mantra a bit, the shouting, the pettiness, the partisanship.
Yeah, yes, I think, I think anybody who listened to what the President said could find wisdom and criticism of what they were doing. And I think that's what the President wanted. I think he tried not to be condescending, but he tried to say to the Senate, to the House, to the Democrats, to the Republicans, hey, look, come on, let's put aside our differences. There are going to be some fundamental things that we can't agree on, but there are a lot of things that we can agree on. Let's not disagree just for the sake of politics. We're not here to get reelected. We're here to do the people's business. We're not here about politics. We're here to to pass good policy. So let's try to make it happen. And I thought he did that. He sent the right message. That was what I wanted to hear my president talk about tonight. And, he gave some really good specifics as well.
Now, I want to, and I don't know if you had a chance to read what Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell said. I'm certain you probably got caught in that spin room there and probably didn't hear what he said. But in the Republican response, one of the things that he talked about was health care reform. As you know, that was a major talking point of the President's State of the Union. And here's what he had to say. Republicans in Congress have offered legislation to reform health care without shifting Medicaid costs to states, without cutting Medicare, without raising taxes, by implementing reforms, common sense reforms he called them, like letting families and businesses buy health insurance policies across state lines, ending frivolous lawsuits against doctors and hospitals that drive up the cost of health care. First, I'm curious of your assessment on what he said, and then second, there's something to what the president said. He talked about, if anybody out there has a better solution to what we've got put together, stand up. And my question is, have the Republicans had a chance? Do you think they've really had their opportunity to put forth some of these pieces of legislation in watching all of this in the House? I know there were times where the Blue Dogs had trouble really getting their legislation out there. So I know it's a lot to put together there, but really those two thoughts. One, what you think of the governor, Bob McDonnell, and two, has the president really given people a chance to talk?
Well, I didn't hear the governor's remarks, and you were right. I was doing interviews, but I think there's room for us to continue for both sides to try to reach out and try to come up with a compromise. The problem is, and I have to tell you that what I have been seeing from the Republicans is just a no vote. I mean, if they don't get every single piece of legislation in their bill, they just say no to it. That's not what a compromise bill is about. This is not going to be perfect for everybody. I mean, there were parts in the House bill that I wanted, that I felt very strongly about with respect to preventative care. It wasn't in the bill. That didn't mean that I voted no on the bill. I tried to get it in, but I couldn't. It's not, you can't have just the perfect bill that you want. And I think that's one of the problems why we're having trouble working across the aisle. Look, we need to really compromise both sides if we're going to do anything with health care. But I think the best way to start is to do an incremental approach, doing a piece at a time, and start to pass pieces of health care that everyone agrees with and that we think are good. That's a good start, I would say.
And I want to get to another line again. I know, as you said, you didn't have a chance to hear it, but there's another line of Bob McDonnell's speech that I think rings true to this current political climate. Some people are afraid America is no longer the great land of promise that she has always been. He said they should not be, but I'm curious your take on that sort of issue that we have today, where people are concerned about the direction of the country and it's seeping into this just sort of general feeling of malaise, maybe, whatever you want to call it. How do we quell that? How do we get over what the president called a general sense of distrust, people who are just incapable of feeling any real sense of connection to their government, politicians, people on TV, the banks? It seemed like there was a laundry list of people who seemed to be not worthy of trusting or listening to.
Well, I think to start with, many Americans today feel a source of entitlement, that they are just entitled to, something simply by virtue of either birthright or simply because they're an American. That's not what it's about. I mean, you still have to, we still have to work hard. We still have to earn everything that we do. And I mean, it's now not just about competing with Americans. It's about competing in a global market with people all over the world. And I think clearly, we need to step up our game. We are capable. We are still the greatest country on earth, but we are going to see increased competition. One of the things the president didn't talk about, however, tonight is the fact that, some of the, he talked about trade agreements, but one of the problems is that we are a free trading country, and yet we trade with other countries who don't follow the same free trade rules that we follow, that manipulate their currency, that add a value-added tax onto our goods going in. So I think that's clearly an issue that the president needs to address. But, we do get concerned. I mean, you listen to the media, And, you know, and the president talked about this. You have commentators who just, you know, just spew hate and just create, you know, division where none really exists. And, you know, that is a problem. You know, and I think, it's a sad state of affairs, but I think, you know, we can overcome it and we need to overcome it and we will. It's just, this is a tough time for us. We have our work cut out for us.